Hey, thank you again for being here. I'm really excited about today's topic because, well, you know what? I don't want to spoil the surprise. So let's just hop right into it. As you can see, I have a very special, important guest. I can't wait to dive in. Let me just read a little snippet of her bio because this is fire and pun intended. So I'm speaking with the lovely Kate Steiner. She is a burnout recovery coach. And so the Burnout Recovery Coach and founder of the Lift Wellness Consulting LLC, and that works with clients to achieve wellness through recovery and self-care practices. She holds a Master of Counseling degree from Idaho State University and a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Counselor Education and Supervision from the University of Wyoming. She has been a researcher on burnout and wellness for 20 years, including the development of sustainability and wellness model anchored in the process of self-reflection. And I cannot wait to dive in. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Thank you so much for having me. Well, I'm always excited to talk about this. So I am excited to be here with you.
Yeah, and one of the things that drew me into you is I was reading like another content you created, and it was talking about like prevention and how that correlates to burnout. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is some good stuff. So please, like, take us back to the beginning. How did you become the burnout recovery coach?
Yeah. So my journey started a long time ago. I mean, I've been, as noted, a researcher of wellness and burnout for 20 years now. And so that's something that I've been doing through college, through my master's program, and those kinds of things. But it wasn't really until I didn't really get into the piece of researching burnout in the way that I have it now. It was about 8 years ago, and I was in the middle of a complete burnout spell, right? So I was completely fried. I was beyond crispy. I was so burnt out, but I didn't recognize it. And looking back, I really feel like that was the worst version of myself, right? I didn't like that Kate. I didn't like how she was around other people. She was super short-tempered. She was irritable all the time. She was super anxious, was experiencing social anxiety. She allowed herself to continue to be in a relationship that was really unhealthy. And so all of these things kind of combined. And it wasn't until I was like, oh, I'm in burnout. Like, I'm totally burnt out right now, that I realized that that's what started my recovery path. So I found a counselor and started doing some of that internal work and kind of talking to her about that, left the relationship, and then really started to do my own research on, like, okay, what is this? Because as humans, we are going to experience these feelings. We're going to have these burn events. And so everything out there was like, burnout prevention, how to prevent burnout. And so it was all in this avoidance language. And I found through my research that it's not something to be avoided. It's more so something for us to identify, prepare, and recover from. And that's a much healthier way of going about it.
So, okay, so you were feeling short-tempered, and you were, surrounding yourself with unhealthy relationships, and you didn't realize that that was burnout. So what was that aha moment? Because I mean, with the pandemic, and there are mothers with their kids at home and they're going nuts. Like, how did you come to that conclusion? You know what, this is burnout. And how can other people, especially particularly women, because I love serving women, but just people in general, like how do we assess, like, I think I'm in burnout?
Yeah. I think for me, it was really kind of recognizing that piece of, I was being a terrible person to the people who loved and supported me most. So my nephew, my mother. And I think there was looking back now, thinking of a moment when I was, complaining about all the bad things that were happening in my life and why they were what attributed to why I was feeling so badly and those kind of things, and not really looking at self and kind of how I contributed to that. And seeing my mother like close to tears and whatnot. And I'm like, there's something more here. This is not like this is not all of the external things causing me this. They impact it, absolutely, but they weren't the cause necessarily. So really kind of thinking, and then going back home after having that conversation with my mother and looking at the person that I was with. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And so, and that was it. That was really the turning point. And certainly the seeing a professional, seeing a counselor did really help kind of bring about some of that additional recognition. Because sometimes you need an outside perspective and someone to say, you just said all these things.
Right.
and you're smiling, but you're not happy. And so that, like someone holding up that mirror and you're like, oh, dang, you're right.
Yeah.
I am totally putting on a show.
Yeah. So tell me what that transformation looked like. So you're working with a therapist, and what inner work or outer work did you have to do to kind of move yourself out of burnout and then become this, basically this superwoman? And yeah, I'm going to call you that because burnout leads to stress, and stress leads to, I mean, stress can give a 28-year-old a heart attack. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it really can cause some things. So what did that look like? What tactical things were you doing, or steps or whatever?
Yeah. So for me, it became about the self-reflection, which is a big part about with the process that I use with clients now. And it was first identifying things that caused stress, anxiety, feelings of burnout for me. And so it wasn't necessarily like that is like, that's the end all be all, like my end point of burnout, but what I call these now are burn events. And we all have them throughout our day, throughout our week. It might be a person that you have to have a meeting with that you're kind of like, oh, this person wears me out. Like they're just energy draining. So doing some processing and really reflecting on like, okay, what are those things? And knowing that you can't completely avoid them. So if that person is a coworker and you need to have a meeting with them, you're going to have to figure out how to do that. But then processing, how do I do that? What do I do to take care of myself right before that moment? What do I do to take care of myself during that moment? And what can I do after that moment to really kind of like get my energy back or recover from being in that space with them? And so really identifying what those self-care practices look like for me. I use a lot of grounding practices. So even just like stopping myself in the moment and saying, Kate, take a deep breath, and doing a full inhale and full exhale, and using the word relax or breathe or let go when I exhale can be incredibly helpful just to keep me in that moment, in that space, and not going down the spiral of future thoughts or past thoughts and those kinds of things. Because when we get stuck in those, we just kind of spiral, right? And those cause additional stress, right? Especially the futuring for me, because I have the knack of taking it to worst case scenario, right? I can't possibly I can't possibly think of the best outcome. I got to be like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen here?
Yeah.
Never does. So I'm just preparing for the worst, right?
Imagination, don't we?
Yeah. So it was a lot of that self-reflection. And then, so taking some of those journaling options and those kinds of things, and then bringing them into my counseling sessions and talking with my counselor about them, and identifying, okay, so here's some of your burn events. What are you going to do? This one is coming up. So how are you preparing for it? And then kind of thinking about what are my general day-to-day self-care rituals that help me in recovery. So what does my wake up routine look like? What does my bedtime routine look like? Are there things that I can do differently in each of those to have a more energetic start to the day or have a better wind down from the day? Are there things that I can do in the middle of the day, actually pausing and taking like leaving my office for lunch was a big step in this piece. And then there was some boundary setting that was incredibly important for me to do. And that was boundary setting within this formal relationship that was unhealthy. That was an important piece and step to take. And then I needed to do some boundary setting when it came to work, because I was responding to any and all things all day long, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not allowing myself any space to just be me. I was always on stage at work, ready to go. And so implementing things like I will not answer email. I took email off my phone for a little while, and that really helped in not responding. I know, right? It's still on my phone now, but I've gotten better at the boundary piece for myself, in that I might look at a message when it comes in. I have no notifications for email on my phone. They do not ping me. They don't come up. I have to actually go into the email and like pull it down for them to load. And so that helps, because it's a conscious decision to look at what email is there. And then I have set times where I do not respond to email or even text messages and those kinds of things. So muting notifications was a big step for me in that boundary setting, but a really important first step for me.
Yeah, that's perfect. So it's really just about being more intentional with everything, and sounded like maybe starting small.
Absolutely.
Little intentions here and there. Like, I love that. And what you talk about boundaries is huge. I mean, I feel like burnout is huge, and then setting boundaries and sticking to those boundaries, because people are going to push your boundaries.
Absolutely. That's what we do as humans, right?
Yeah. What advice do you have about that?
Yeah.
About setting boundaries.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is, especially when it comes to the boundary of my time and time that I have scheduled for myself, is I tell myself that I am scheduling that meeting as though I am scheduling it with someone else. So when I schedule time to be with you, I'm committed to being fully present with you in the space together, and, you know, being present and taking your energy in and those kinds of things. I need to do the same thing for myself, and you need to do the same thing for yourself when you schedule time with yourself. And so a big piece and a reminder that I give myself constantly and that I give clients is that don't cancel on yourself. If you have scheduled time for yourself, honor it the exact same way you would if you were someone else.
Yeah, that's good. Because I feel like it's so easy to cancel on yourself. Well, it's
so easy to cancel on yourself.
You know, I'm not going to get in trouble, you know. So that's golden. Now, you brought up that you work with clients. So what type of clients do you typically work with?
Yeah, so I work with individual clients, often folks in kind of higher stress positions, education, nursing, a lot of helping professions, because that's really kind of where my background is too. So that's where my connections at this point are from. And, you know, you can't help someone else unless you're helping yourself first. So that's an important piece. Also can work with corporate clients, really to do both employee training and supervision training so that they can help their employees be their best version of themselves. And supervisors can then actually assist in that process so that they're avoiding burnout, because burnout is like 20 to 50% of the reason that you have employee turnover. And it costs billions and billions of dollars to corporations every year to have employees experiencing burnout. So that's something that I really want to do more of, is helping folks figure that out so that their companies are successful because they have happy, productive employees. I also offer a couple of workshops. So folks that are like, I'm not sure about individual coaching yet. I have a 1-hour workshop that introduces the model and kind of that intro piece of how to implement it into your life. And then a 4-hour deep dive workshop where we really get into how to implement the process, how to observe, prepare, and recover from burnout and burn events, implementing all of the practices of wellness into your life. And that includes a workbook.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I was just about to ask you, like, did you do one-on-one coaching or was there a course involved? Awesome. Yeah. So step one, there's this self-reflection, which I love because it all starts with awareness. Then you involve the self-care. And then after you're implementing self-care, and I assume like that would be daily.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Daily rituals is kind of how I refer to those self-care practices. And again, they don't have to be big. Brushing your teeth is a daily ritual and a self-care practice.
exactly. So yeah, wake up routines and bedtime routines, fabulous. And then boundary settings. So I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's say, obviously reach out to Kate. Like she's the person you want to reach out to. Like if you're going through stressful times, anxiety with the pandemic and or whatever, grief or whatever, and you just need someone to talk to and someone to coach you through that and give you the steps and the way to go. But for anyone that's like, I don't know about this yet, what would you say is like a roadblock that most people might hit that try to do this on their own?
Yeah, it's ourselves, really. So I mean, I was in that place, right? So when I was the worst version of Kate, I was my own roadblock. I was keeping myself from being fully well because I thought I'm doing all these wellness things. I exercise, I take dance classes, I eat pretty well.
Yeah.
But I wasn't focused in on my emotional and mental health. And that's where that roadblock kind of came in. But really we're the ones that stop ourselves. And I think part of it is societal because we are independent people. And, the idea is that I don't need to ask for help.
Right.
And so with that, or we spend so much of our time being fine, right? That people ask the question, how are you? Fine. Well, but we continue to keep that mask on. And when we do that, we disconnect from our emotions. And sometimes we've done that so well that we don't even recognize that we're in that burnout space. So taking a moment to think about how do I show up with other people is I think a good way to help yourself start to recognize that. Because if others are indicating that maybe you're short-tempered or maybe you're harder to be around, or it's really only the folks that are closest to you that are still around you and others seem to have dropped off, maybe taking a step back and thinking, how am I contributing to this through my behavior? But it really is kind of our own thought process because I think we just spend so much time like, I'm fine, I'm well. And in keeping that mask on, that when we take a step back, it's like, what emotion would I really use if someone asked me how I am today?
Yeah, because no, what you said is so true. Because like when you were talking about, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. It's like, man, there's been times I have a headache and somebody, how are you? And it's like, I got a headache, but it's like, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm okay. And it's, I don't know, it's like, well, I don't want to burden you with my problems. So yeah, definitely. And it seems like we're kind of coming out of this pandemic, but there are some places still in the US that are on lockdown and we're stuck in this house. Does it start with small steps, like just brushing your teeth at the same time every day so you don't have to think about it later? Like, how do you even start to do that self-care if you're like a mom and kids are just bouncing off the walls?
Yeah, I would say find a practice that you can do in 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And so grounding practices are really helpful for that. So it's again, as simple as just taking a deep breath and letting that go. But also one that I really like is you look around your space and you engage all of your 5 senses. So you name 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can taste, and 1 thing, and I always forget the 5th sense when I go through this.
Oh, like taste, touch, hear, sight. Well, no, we
Smell.
did sight.
Yeah.
Sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, but you engage all of your 5 senses, and then that kind of slows you down in that moment, brings you to the present moment. So it's really like starting super small, like 30 seconds to 2 minutes, something you can do for yourself. And you don't have to go, I mean, when we think of self-care, people are like, oh, I have to go get a massage or do a bubble bath or something to that effect. Your daily skincare is self-care. So maybe giving yourself an extra minute to really, massage in that lotion through the skincare, or take a mindful moment when you pour your first cup of coffee to hold it up to you, feel the warmth of it, and inhale the scent. And then just take a deep breath after that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So please, again, if anyone wants help with this, they're experiencing burnout, how do people connect with you or work with you?
Yeah, so they can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Dr. Kate Steiner. But they can also find us at our website, which is liftwellnessconsulting.com. I'm also findable on LinkedIn, just under Kate Steiner. I think it's Dr. Kate Steiner there too. I'm pretty sure I added my title. And Lift Wellness Consulting is also on Facebook. We have a page there.
Fantastic. And don't worry, everybody, if you scroll to the bottom of this video in the description, all Kate links will be there. So like if you want to take it further or reach out to Kate on social media, it's all good. It's all down there. This has been great. What do you want to leave our audience with? Like one piece of advice?
Yeah. One piece of advice is know that just like taking care of your skin when it comes to putting on sunscreen, you can protect yourself from burn events and burnout through recovery practices.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Kate. This has been such a fabulous interview, and I really appreciate getting this time to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited that I was here with you today.
Awesome.